The kitchen smelled of rosemary and regret that Mother's Day morning. The air thick with the promise I'd stitched into every dish. I woke to the tick of the old clock on the wall, its rhythm sharper than usual, like it knew the hours would betray me. Today, I thought, would be different, my dining room alive with laughter, my kids' voices weaving through the clatter of plates. I'd spent years dreaming of this, you see, ever since their calls grew short and their visits shorter, but as I chopped carrots and basted the chicken, humming the lullaby I used to sing to them at bedtime, I didn't yet know I'd end the day alone. Staring at a feast no one came to claim. My hands, calloused from years of kneading dough and wiping tears, moved with a stubborn hope. The kitchen was my sanctuary, where I'd taught my daughter to twist her braids just so. Where my son once smeared cookie dough on his nose and grinned like he'd won a prize. I set the table with care, each plate a prayer, each glass a wish, but as the clock struck 6, then 7, the candles dripping wax like tears, a text buzzed my phone. Sorry, Ma. Something came up. One by one, the excuses piled up, colder than the untouched pie on the table. There's a moment that night when the silence grew heavier than the love I'd poured into that meal that cracked something deep inside me. I'm not ready to name it yet, but it's the kind of break that makes you question if you've been cooking for ghosts all along. This is my story. A mother who loved with every recipe she knew, who set a table for a family that slipped away, and who's still learning how to carry the weight of empty chairs. Will I find a way to heal? Will they ever come back? I don't know, but I'm starting here, with the truth. Because sometimes the hardest stories are the ones we need to tell. The dawn sliced through the curtains. A blade of light honed with promise and a quiet, gnawing pain. In the kitchen, the clock's tick was a hammer, each second pounding the years I'd spent waiting for Lila and Jonah to come back to me. My fingers, rough from time, plucked rosemary from the garden, its sharp needles pricking my skin like a warning. I laid the sprigs beside the knife, a silent vow to carve this Mother's Day into something theirs again. Though doubt curled in my chest, heavy as riverstone, the dough yielded under my hands, trembling not with age but with hope's fragile weight, and fear that they'd leave the table empty. A gospel tune hummed from the radio, low and mournful, and I whispered their names, Lila, Jonah, like a chant to pull them from the ether. Polishing the dining table, my reflection stared back, eyes fierce with a mother's love. But a memory struck like lightning. Lila, 6, her grin smeared with frosting. Jonah, 8, his lopsided cake crumbling under his proud, clumsy hands. I flinched, the neighbor's voice cutting through. They coming today? Her pity was a barb, and I nodded, lying to her, to myself. The chicken roasted, its sizzle a frail shield against the ache in my ribs. But a spark flickered. Maybe today they'd walk through that door. The house smelled of rosemary and longing, the air thick with what I couldn't say. My hands moved, kneading, chopping, stirring, each motion a prayer for their return. The table gleamed, an altar to my waiting, set with plates that held their laughter, their fights, their small, fierce loves. I saw Lila's face in the grain of the wood, her teenage scowl softening into something I couldn't name. Jonah's voice echoed, his boyish bravado now a man's distance. The radio sang of grace, but grace felt far, a stranger to this heart that beat for them. I stood at the sink, water running over my hands, and thought of the river where we'd skipped stones, their laughter a music I'd bottled in my bones. The neighbor's dog barked, sharp and sudden, and I turned, half expecting their faces. At the window, nothing, just the light, fading now, and the clock, relentless. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling the pulse of a mother's hope, frail but stubborn, refusing to break. The biscuits rose in the oven, golden and warm, and I whispered, "Come home," though the words dissolved into the steam. The doubt grew teeth, but so did my resolve. A fire kindled in the marrow of my waiting. Today, I'd make a feast, a reckoning, a love they couldn't turn from. The door stayed shut, but my heart, cracked and fierce, held fast to the edge of morning, sharp with what might yet be. The afternoon sun poured gold across the table, each plate a shard of love's long history. Lila's chipped one from her reckless teens. Jonah's, from the Christmas he swore he'd never leave. I wove a tapestry of devotion with every setting, but the threads frayed, each silent minute, a tear in the fabric. My phone buzzed, an old friend's voice spilling cheer. "How's Mother's Day?" Her question cut deeper than I'd braced for. A blade slipped between my ribs. I folded napkins into swans, my fingers stumbling, remembering Lila's laughter as I taught her, her joy now a ghost that haunted the folds. The pie cooled, its lattice crust, a perfection I'd labored for, but my hands shook, picturing chairs that might stay empty. I lit candles, their flames trembling like my hope, fragile and flickering in the weight of their absence. A text chimed, not theirs, but a delivery app, announcing flowers I hadn't ordered. Confusion sparked, a question I couldn't hold. Who sent them? I hummed their old lullaby, my voice cracking on the notes, and glanced at the door, half expecting it to swing wide, knowing it wouldn't. The kitchen was a shrine, each dish a testament to years I'd poured into them. The swan sat proud, but my heart faltered, a bird with clipped wings. I saw Lila's hands, small and eager, folding napkins years ago, her eyes bright with trust. Jonah's voice rang in my memory, singing off-key, his warmth a fire-eyed banked against the cold of his leaving. The flowers red roses, bold and wrong sat in a vase, their scent cloying, a mystery I couldn't unravel. I moved through the room, a shadow among my own relics, the plates whispering their stories. The candles burned low, wax dripping like tears I wouldn't shed. I stood by the window, the sun's gold fading to amber, and thought of the summers we'd spent on the porch, their laughter a river I'd drunk from. The silence now was a drought, parching my soul. I touched the pie, its crust cool, and wondered if they'd taste my love in it, or only my longing. The lullaby lingered in my throat, a melody I couldn't finish. The door stayed still, but my heart, a fragile bridge, stretched toward them, trembling under the weight of what I couldn't name. I whispered their names, a litany against the quiet, and set another candle aflame, its light a frail defiance. The table waited, a canvas of my hope, but the threads of my tapestry unraveled, each moment pulling them further from me. Yet I stood, rooted, a mother's love a stubborn root in barren soil, holding fast to the feast I'd made, fragile but fierce. For them. The clock chimed 6, and the house held its breath, the feast steaming for ghosts. I paced, my heart a war drum, pounding the lie that Lila and Jonah would come. A text from Lila landed, sharp and sudden, stuck in traffic. "Ma, be there soon." The question mark pierced, her words vague, not the clean lines of her usual precision. I rearranged the silverware, my fingers lingering on Jonah's bent fork. A relic of his teenage fury, its curve a map of our old wars. At 7, Jonah's message struck. "Work's a mess. Can't make it. Love you." The word love was a bruise, too easy, too late. I stared at the candles, their wax pooling like my grief, and whispered, "Why don't you need me?" The silence pressed, heavy as stone. A faint, noisy car sent me rushing to the window, but it was just the neighbor's dog, barking at shadows. My chest tightened, and I wondered what held them, what pulled them from this table. This heart. The kitchen was a hollow hour, each tick of the clock a theft. The feast mocked me, its steam curling like dreams I'd buried. Lila's text replayed in my mind, its question a wound I couldn't staunch. I saw her face, young and fierce, promising she'd never leave. Jonah's fork gleamed, a reminder of nights we'd fought, his anger a fire I'd tried to douse with love. The candles burned, their flames frail against the dark of their absence. I stood by the table, a priestess at a forsaken altar, my hands trembling with the weight of their promises. The silence was a weight, pressing my bones. And I thought of the river where we'd fished, their laughter a current I'd clung to. Now, the house was a dry bed, parched of their voices. I touched the pie, its crust cold, and wondered if they'd ever taste my love again. The neighbor's dog barked again, and I flinched, hope a reflex I couldn't kill. Lila's words soon hung in the air, a lie I wanted to believe. Jonah's love you echoed, a hollow gift. I sat, the chair creaking under me, and stared at the plates, their emptiness a mirror of my heart. The clock ticked on, relentless, and I whispered their names, a chant against the hollow hour. The candles flickered, their light a fragile thread, and I held it, though it burned. My love was a drum, beating still, but the silence answered, heavy and cruel, leaving me to wonder what roads they traveled, what kept them from this feast, this mother who waited, fierce and frail. In the hollow of their absence, the chickens, skin dulled, the biscuits hardened, my resolve fading like the light through the window. The table, a shrine to my love, mocked me, and something inside cracked not loud, but deep, a fissure in the bone of my hope. I blew out the candles, there, smoke curling like dreams I'd buried in the soil of my waiting. Wrapping the food in foil, my fingers found a note under a plate. Jonah's scrawl jagged, "Sorry, Ma, meant to visit last week." My breath caught. When did he leave this? The words were a wound, fresh and raw. My reflection in the window, gray hair, hollow eyes, showed a woman I barely knew, a stranger carved by years of longing. A memory stabbed. Jonah's graduation, his hug brief, his eyes on a future that didn't hold me. I stepped onto the porch, the night air thick, and let a tear fall. Its salt, a quiet surrender. Across the street, a neighbor's party glowed. Its warmth, a world I couldn't touch. The kitchen was a tomb, the food, a relic of my failure. Jonah's note burned in my hand, its apology, a weight I couldn't carry. I saw him, young and fierce, promising he'd stay close, his voice a river I'd drunk from. Now, the river was dry, and I stood on its cracked bed, alone. The candle smoke lingered, a ghost of my hope, and I wondered if Lila knew, if she'd seen this note, this fracture. The porch creaked under my weight, the night pressing close, and I thought of the summers we'd spent here, their laughter, a fire I'd banked against this cold. The neighbors' music drifted, a faint pulse, and I envied their joy, their togetherness. My tear dried, but the ache remained, a stone in my chest. I held Jonah's note, its edges sharp, and wondered when he'd slipped it there. What kept him from saying it aloud? The table inside waited, its plates empty, its love unclaimed. I saw Lila's face, her teenage scowl, her promise to never leave, and wondered where she was now, what road she traveled. The night was heavy, but my heart, though cracked, beat on, a stubborn drum. I stepped back inside, the foil crinkling in my hands, and set the note beside the pie, a truth I couldn't bury. The neighbor's light flickered, and I stood, a shadow, in my own house, holding fast to the fading light of my love, frail but fierce, for them. The porch held my surrender, but the kitchen called me back, a mother still waiting, still hoping. Though the light grew dim, and the table stayed empty, midnight cloaked the house, the untouched pie, a cruel mirror of my failure. The silence wasn't empty, it was a storm, raging, accusing, tearing at the seams of my heart. I traced the scars on my hands, each a map of years poured into Lila and Jonah, and wondered if they ever saw the love carved there. I opened Lila's sketchbook, her childish drawings of U.S. stick figures, smiling. Whole and my chest ached for the girl who loved me fiercely, her trust a fire I'd tended. I called Jonah, his voicemail crisp, corporate. Not my boy. Jonah, it's Ma, I said, voice breaking. I found your note. I hung up, heart pounding. What did he mean, meant to visit? I sat at the table, the empty plates staring, like ice, and whispered, was my love enough? The question cut, its answer a shadow I couldn't face. Outside, the wind howled, echoing the storm inside me. A fury I couldn't name. The kitchen was a battlefield, the silence a weapon. Lila's sketchbook lay open, her drawings a wound, each line a memory of her laughter, her warmth. I saw her, small and fierce, clinging to me, promising forever. Jonah's note sat beside the pie, its words a ghost I couldn't banish. I thought of the nights I'd waited, my love a river they'd crossed but never returned to. The phone stayed silent, Jonah's voicemail a wall between us. My voice, cracked and raw, lingered in the air, a plea he wouldn't hear. The plates gleamed, their emptiness a judgment, and I wondered if my love had been too heavy, too fierce. The wind outside rattled the windows, a mirror to my rage, my grief. I touched the sketchbook, Lila's lines blurring through my tears, and saw us on the porch, her head on my shoulder, Jonah's laughter a drum. When did it break? The question burned, and the silence answered, cruel and cold. I stood, the chair scraping, and paced, my hands trembling with the weight of their absence. The pie's crust crumbled under my touch, its sweetness a lie. I whispered, their names, a chant against the storm, but the wind drowned me out. My love was a fire, but the house was ash, and I stood in its ruins, a mother unmoored. The sketchbook closed, its pages heavy, and I held it, a relic of a love they'd outgrown. The storm raged on, inside and out, but my heart, though torn, beat still, a stubborn pulse in the silence, holding fast to the hope that my love, fierce and frail, might yet reach them. Dawn crept in, gray and heavy, the kitchen reeking of yesterday's defeat. I swept the floor, each stroke a fight against despair, though it pressed close, winning. A photo slipped from a drawer, me, young, cradling newborn Lila, my eyes blazing with love a fire time hadn't quenched. I clutched it, tears rising, and texted them both. I'm still here. No reply came, but I hadn't expected one. The neighbor knocked, her pity softer today, and handed me a letter addressed to me, in Lila's handwriting. My pulse raced. When did she leave this? I lied, saying the kids were coming tomorrow, and she nodded, unconvinced. I burned a napkin in the sink, its flames brief but fierce. A small rebellion against the weight of this house, this heart, this endless waiting. The kitchen was a battlefield, the broom a weapon I wielded poorly. Lila's letter trembled in my hand, its weight a mystery I feared to unravel. I saw her face, young and fierce, promising she'd stay close, her laughter a river I'd drunk from. The photo burned in my grip, my younger self a stranger, her hope a flame I envied. Jonah's note lingered, his apology a wound I couldn't close. The neighbors' pity stung, but the letter was sharper, a spark in the gray dawn. I stood, the floor cold under my feet, and thought of the porch where we'd laughed. Their voices a music I'd bottled in my bones. The silence now was a drought, parching my soul. The napkin's ashes smoldered, a brief defiance, and I wondered if my love burned them, if I'd held too tightly. The text I sent, I'm still here, hung in the air, a plea unanswered. The letter sat unopened, its words a weight I wasn't ready to carry. I swept on, the broom's rhythm a pulse, and saw us at the river, skipping stones. Their joy, a fire I'd banked against this cold. The neighbor's dog barked, and I flinched, hope a reflex I couldn't kill. The dawn grew lighter, but its weight remained, pressing my ribs. I held the photo, Lila's infant face blurring through my tears, and whispered her name, a chant against despair. The letter waited, a truth I'd face soon, but not yet. The kitchen held me, its walls a witness, to my love, my loss. The broom stilled, and I stood, a mother rooted in barren soil, my heart a stubborn drum, beating against the dawn's weight, fierce and frail, for them. I opened Lila's letter, her words trembling on the page. Ma, I'm sorry. It's hard to come back. My breath caught she'd never written like this, her heart bare, unguarded. I grabbed a notebook, my own words, spilling anger, love, fear a flood I couldn't dam. The kitchen shrank, its walls holding my truth too close, a confession I wasn't ready to voice. I wrote to Lila about the braids I taught her, each twisted dream she'd pass them on, her hands weaving love into her own child's hair. To Jonah, about the nights I waited, my pride a fire I hid when he drifted, his dreams pulling him from me. My pen faltered, then confessed. I feared I wasn't enough, that my love had pushed them away, too heavy, too fierce. I tore the pages, then taped them back, unable to let go, each word a scar I carried. I hid the notebook under the tablecloth, a secret too raw to share, but Lila's letter burned in my mind. What was she hiding? What kept her from this table? The kitchen was a confessional, the letter a mirror I couldn't turn from. Lila's words, sorry, hard cut deeper than I'd braced for, a wound I hadn't seen coming. I saw her, young and fierce, her braids tight, her laughter a river-eyed, drunk from. Jonah's face flashed, his teenage scowl, his promises to stay close, now ash in the wind of his leaving. The notebook trembled in my hands, my confessions a weight I couldn't shed. I thought of the porch, our summers, their voices, a music I'd bottled in my bones. The silence now was a drought, parching my soul. The tablecloth hid my truth, but Lila's letter lay bare, its apology a spark in the dark. I wrote on, my pen a blade, carving love, loss, fear into the page. The kitchen held me, its walls a witness to my unraveling. I saw us at the river, skipping stones, their joy a fire I'd banked against this cold. The letter's words replayed hard to come back, and I wondered what roads she traveled, what shadows she fled. My heart, cracked and fierce, beat on, a drum against the silence. The notebook closed, its pages heavy, but I held it, a relic of my love, my fear. The kitchen was still, but Lila's letter burned, a truth I couldn't bury. I stood, a mother, rooted in barren soil, my words unspoken but alive, trembling with the hope that my love, fierce and frail, might yet reach them, might yet bring them home. A knock jolted me, and Lila stood there, unannounced, her eyes guarded, a faint bruise on her cheek. My heart lurched what had marked her. She stepped into the kitchen, and for a moment, she was my girl again, her laughter a ghost in the air, but the distance between us was a chasm, wide and cold. I poured coffee, my hands steady despite the storm inside, and asked, "You okay, baby?" She shrugged, her voice tight, "Just needed to see you." She talked new job, new city, but her words danced around the bruise. The letter, a truth, she wouldn't share. I asked about her life, and she snapped, "It's fine, Ma." her tone a blade that cut us both. The pie sat untouched, its crust a silent witness, and her eyes flickered guilt maybe, or fear. She left after 20 minutes, promising to call, but her hug was stiff, her hand trembling as she pulled away. The silence returned, heavier, and I wondered what she was running from. What shadow clung to her? The kitchen was a fragile bridge, Lila's presence a thread I couldn't hold. Her bruise burned in my mind, a wound I couldn't touch. I saw her, young and fierce, her braids swinging, her trust a fire I'd tended. The coffee cooled, its steam curling like dreams I'd buried. Lila's words fine-mocked, a lie I wanted to believe. The pie gleamed, its sweetness a mockery of our distance. I thought of the letter, her apology, and wondered what kept her from saying it aloud. The chasm between us yawned, and I stood on its edge, a mother reaching across. Her hug lingered, stiff but real, and I felt her trembling, a spark of fear I couldn't name. The silence pressed, heavy as stone, and I saw us on the porch, her head on my shoulder, her laughter a river I'd drunk from. Now, the river was dry, and I stood on its cracked bed, alone. The bruise on her cheek was a map I couldn't read, a story she wouldn't tell. I held the coffee pot, its weight a comfort, and whispered her name, a chant against the dark. The kitchen held me, its walls a witness to my love, my fear. Lila's promise to call hung in the air, a frail thread, and I clung to it, though it burned. The silence returned, but my heart, cracked and fierce, beat on, a drum against the chasm. I stood, a mother rooted in barren soil, holding fast to the fragile bridge of her visit. Fierce and frail, hoping it might lead her back to me. The kitchen was a tomb, each corner a memory that cut, sharp and unyielding. I unraveled, my hope fraying, my anger rising like a tide I couldn't hold. I ripped the tablecloth off, the notebook tumbling, and found another note. Jonas. Older, faded. Ma, I'm sorry about the fight. A fight? My mind reeled. What words had we flung that night? I ate a slice of pie, its sweetness bitter, and cried for the mother they didn't see, the mother I'd lost in their leaving. I screamed at the clock, its ticking a thief, and unplugged it. The silence, a small victory, a breath in the storm. A memory choked me, their last Christmas, their laughter warm, their presence enough. When did it break, that fragile thread? I collapsed on the floor, clutching Lila's letter, and whispered, I can't carry this alone. But the spark of anger felt alive, a flame I could hold, a defiance against the weight of their absence. The kitchen was a battlefield, the tablecloth a fallen banner. Jonah's note burned in my hand, its apology a wound I couldn't close. Saw him, young and fierce, his promises a river I'd drunk from, now dry. Lila's letter trembled, her words sorry heart a mirror of my unraveling. The pie's crust crumbled, its taste a lie, and I wept for the mother I'd been, fierce and whole. The clock's silence was a gift, but the memories pressed, heavy as stone. I thought of the porch, their laughter, a fire I'd banked against this cold. The fight with Jonah, what had we said, was a shadow I couldn't grasp. The notebook lay open, my confessions a map of my heart, torn and taped. I stood, the floor cold, and paced, my anger a pulse, alive and fierce. The kitchen held me, its walls a witness to my breaking. I saw us at the river, skipping stones, their joy a flame I envied. The silence was a drought, parching my soul, but my anger was a spark, a fire I could tend. I held Lila's letter, its weight a truth I couldn't bury, and Jonah's note, a wound I'd face. The pie sat, a relic of my love, and I wept, a mother unmoored, but alive. The spark of anger burned, and I clung to it, a defiance against the tomb of this house, this heart. I stood, rooted in barren soil, my heart a drum beating fierce and frail. For them, for me, for the mother I still was. Morning broke, soft and clear, the kitchen no longer a prison but a place to breathe. I wasn't whole, but I was here, my hands steady, my heart a quiet drum. I sold the table, its weight gone to a young family, their laughter a spark I envied but didn't grudge. The kitchen remained, and so did I, ready to rebuild, to need something new. I baked bread, simple, for myself, the rhythm of my hands a trust I'd earned. I framed Lila's sketchbook, its childish lines a testament to love that lived, changed but real. I called Jonah, my voice firm, I'm here, and I love you, and hung up, leaving the door open, not locked. On the porch, I wrote one truth, I'm enough. The words felt fragile but true, a seed in barren soil. A text, buzzed Lila ma, can we talk soon? My heart leaped, a spark of hope, small but fierce, as I looked to the horizon, ready for whatever came. The kitchen was a cradle, the bread's warmth a promise I made to myself. Lila's sketchbook gleamed, its frame a shrine to love that endured. I saw her, young and fierce, her laughter a river I'd drunk from, now flowing again, faint but real. Jonah's voice echoed, his distance a wound, but my call was a bridge, fragile but standing. The porch held my truth, its words a fire I'd kindled. The silence was no longer a storm but a quiet I could shape. I thought of the river, their stones skipping, their joy a flame I carried still. The text from Lila talks soon burned in my mind, a spark I wouldn't douse. The bread rose, golden and warm, and I broke it, its taste a vow to keep going. The kitchen held me, its walls a witness to my rebirth. I stood, a mother rooted in new soil, my heart a drum, beating steady. The horizon stretched, soft and clear, and I saw us there, not whole but trying, their laughter a music I'd hear again. The porch creaked, and I wrote again, I'm enough, the words a root, deep and fierce. Lila's text glowed, a thread I'd follow, and Jonah's silence was a door I'd left open. The bread's scent filled the air, a promise I'd keep, for them, for me. I stood, my hands steady, my hope aflame, small but alive, ready for the new dawn, its light a truth I'd claim. Fierce and frail, but mine.